This is Advanced Math, Notes 1.1a, that's Unit 1, Lesson 1a. It's titled Factoring Review. So this is a review of factoring that you've been doing since Math 2. You learned it in Math 2, you reviewed it again in Math 3, you worked with it in Math 3, and we're going to use it a whole lot in Advanced Math. All right, factor completely. Number 1, 27 y squared x minus 3x to the third. Okay, what do we see here? There's two terms, which means it's not trinomial factoring. It's either difference of two squares, GCF, or the cube factoring that you learned last year. Well, it's not difference of two squares. It's not cube factoring because this is not a cubed. 3 is not a perfect cubed. It is a GCF problem. And just a heads up, GCF is what you should always look for first anyway, because that's typically where kids mess up. They forget to do the GCF first. 3 is the largest number that goes into both. I have an x and an x cubed. X is the largest. There's no y. X is the largest amount that they have in common, is what I meant to say. There's an x to the first here, an x to the third there. They only have an x to the first in common. There's not a y on both of them, so I'm going to put my parentheses, 3 times 9. I need the y squared. The x is already taken care of, so it's just 9y squared minus 3 is taken care of. X is taken out. I need it to be x cubed, which means this is going to be an x squared. And you can distribute to make sure that it works. 3 times 9 is 27. X times y squared is y squared x. 3x times x squared is 3x to the third. It works. Now, just a heads up, if you stop here and box in this answer, you'd get it wrong, because looking here, you can see there's still difference of two squares. There's two terms. There's a minus sign. They are both perfect squares. So what times what is 9y squared? When it's difference of two squares, you use the perfect square, so that's 3y times 3y. What times what is x squared? That's x and x. And it's always 1 plus and 1 minus, because the only way to get a negative is if one's positive and one's negative. And you learned your inside-outside on how to check it. When you check it on this one, your middle terms cancel out, which is what it should do when it's a difference of two squares. This here is your answer. Okay, number 2. 36 minus y squared. 36 minus y squared. Okay, there are two terms. So again, it's not a trinomial factoring. We should look for a GCF first, and there is no GCF. So the next thing we look for is difference of two squares, or trinomial factoring. They're both perfect squares. There's a, difference of two squares, or cube factoring. It's not cube factoring, but it is difference of two squares. So we double bubble. What times what is 36? That's 6 and 6. What times what is y squared? That's y and y. Now, if it's backwards like this with the number before the variable, you factor it backwards. Kids are always tempted to put the y first and the 6 second. If it's flipped around backwards in the original problem, you flip it around in your answer. One's positive, one's negative, so that a positive times a negative is that negative there, and that there is your answer. Again, that was difference of two squares. Okay, number 3. X squared minus 11x minus 60. We first look for a GCF. There is no GCF, so we see three terms. We're thinking maybe trinomial factoring, x squared x and a constant. It definitely is trinomial factoring. X times x is x squared. You list the factors of 60. And because this last sign is negative, you know your two signs are going to be different. One is positive, one is negative. We don't know which one's which, so I'm just going to throw plus minus in there. And then we're looking for the numbers that will add up to the negative 11 when we do our inside-outside. One being positive and one being negative. Okay, so 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12, and you just keep going through until you find them. And I can see 6 and 10, and you may not have to go this far because you should find it right around here. If I'm trying to get negative 11, it looks like the 15 should be negative. Negative 15, positive 4, and we check it. Positive 4x, negative 15x. We add them together. Positive 4 plus negative 15 is negative 11, and that is indeed what we're trying to find. So we celebrate, we're happy, and we box in this answer. If you put x minus 15 and then x plus 4, that's perfectly fine, as long as your 4 is positive and your 15 is negative. Okay, number 4, 6x squared minus xy minus 77y squared. All right. This one is actually quite a bit harder than this last one because, for one, there's double variables and a leading coefficient in the front other than 1. Okay, so I am going to use the factors of 6, 1 and 6, 2 and 3. So when I factor, I know I'm going to use either 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. And that's part of the guess and check. You just don't know until you've checked it. I'm going to go ahead and put in 2x and 3x. And I know it has to have an x because I need it to be not just 6, but 6x squared. Okay, for 77, we try 1 and 77, or 7 and 11. The last sign's negative, which means my two signs are going to be different. I don't know which one's positive, which one's negative, so I'm just going to throw them in there, minus, plus, and we can fix it later if needed. Okay, I'm trying to get a negative 1 in the middle, so I'm not going to start off with the 77. I'll start off with the 7 and 11. If I put the 11 here, that would be 33. If I put the 11 here, that would be 22. So I'm going to start there, 11 there, and 7 here, and let's see if we can get it to work. Inside is negative 21x. Outside is positive 22x. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Negative 21 plus 22 is positive 1x. I'm trying to get a negative. That's an easy fix. I simply flip the signs, leave the 2x with the 7, but make it plus 7. Leave the 3x with the 11, but make it minus. Let's check if it works. Positive 21, negative 22, adds up to negative 1. That's what we're trying to get in the middle, and I did not put my xy's there, and it should be xy. Now, if I left it right now the way it is, I'm not going to get the xy. So if I box this in, why would it be wrong? Because I need the 7y and the 11y. 7y times 11y to get the 77y squared. Got it? Okay, so gives you the xy, it adds up, we're happy, we celebrate, we box in our answer. Okay, number 5. 10 minus x minus 3x squared. All right, kids struggle with this one because it's backwards. The best advice I can give you is if it's backwards, leave it backwards and factor it. Because if you try to flip it around, you end up with the negative in the front. You could factor the negative, but then kids end up messing it up. it's best if you can just learn and train your brain on how to factor it backwards. Okay, factors of 10, 1 and 10, 2 and 5. So I'm going to try either 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. My gut is telling me 2 and 5 only because I'm trying to get a 1 in the middle. So 2 and 5, and there's no x here, so it's just 2, 5, not 2x and 5x. Okay, factors of 3, and because my last sign is negative, I know my two signs have to be different, which means one is positive, one is negative. I do not know which one's which. I'm just going to throw it in there. Okay, factors of 3 are 1 and 3. That's it, because 3 is prime. So I know I'm going to do 1, 3 or 3, 1. 1, 3 or 3, 1. I'm going to try 3, 1 first. 3, 1. Now, I'm trying to get not just negative 3, but negative 3x squared. So I put the x there and there. 3x and negative 1x multiplies to negative 3x squared. Okay, inside 15x, outside negative 2x. Add those together, you get positive 13x, which is not what I'm trying to get. So we try another possibility. And if you've already got it on your own because you've worked ahead, that is fine. I'm just trying to show you methods on how to work these out when you're doing them on your own. Okay, so I think I had 3 here, so I'm going to change it to 1x, and over here put the 3x and see if that works better. Inside gives me positive 5x. Outside gives me negative 6x. That adds up to negative 1x, which is indeed what I'm trying to get here, negative 1x. We're happy, we box in our answers. Now if you don't put 1x and you just put 2 plus x, that's perfectly fine as well. It all works out the same. All right, that is it for this lesson. Make sure if you have any questions, you mark them down and be ready to get them cleared up in class.